Swan's Cafe in the Boston Park Plaza Hotel. This is the Smoki Bacon and Dick Concannon Show with co-host Joanna DiTillo. So stay tuned. Many of us today long for the small villages where you went in and, as the expression goes, everybody knows your name. And now you have lots of huge malls, what have you, where people could care less of who you are. Well, I have a surprise for you. There is a place in Boston, and it is Fields Corner Main Street. It's an organization, and they have dozens of stores there. The community is working together, and we have today Evelyn Darling, who is the director of the Fields Corner Main Street. They have many things going on. But you know, one of the things, Evelyn, and looking at your PR, was that you state that you have as many Asian businesses in Fields Corner as in Chinatown? Is that true? If you tell our, that thing is a big shock to me.
Yes, in Fields Corner there's a predominance of Vietnamese-owned businesses. Vietnamese people started coming to Fields Corner in Dorchester in the 80s and in the 90s and found a place that was quite run down. So they had the opportunity to start up businesses, a lot of small
You have gift stores,
family
you
gift
have
stores, absolutely.
Jade.
Yes,
Anybody
yes.
interested in jewelry?
Jewelry, makeup. We also have stores of small Asian specialty grocers. And
You also have your Irish pubs.
we have Irish pubs as well.
A very diverse group.
Very diverse, definitely.
And they're all working together.
We are
In the
all
business.
working together to improve, revitalize the inner city.
Well, tell our viewers about the history of the Fields Corner Main Street.
Fields Corner Main Street is a program that was sponsored by Mayor Menino. It's a national program from the National Historic Trust, and the idea is to revitalize historic commercial districts, once vibrant commercial districts that had gone through a decline. As people moved out of the city, as you said, malls became the predominant place where people did their shopping. Well, the idea is to bring people back into the center of the cities, bring them back into their historic commercial districts.
Now, one of your neighbors is not in business. They are in business, but they are academic and scholastic, and that's the University of Massachusetts. Another guest we have today is Gail Hoben, and she is the Assistant Vice Chancellor of University Communications and Relations at UMass Boston. Now you're working, I looked at everything that you've been doing. You're working with a lot of different groups.
Yes.
But you are working, would you tell our viewers how the University of Massachusetts works with Fields Corner?
Well, probably about 2 years ago, I was asked to join the Fields Corner Main Street Advisory Board. So I became a board member, and so we work on fundraising events, and we just finished a project, as a matter of fact, with the Dorchester Board of Trade, and we worked with the main streets, including Fields Corner, identifying all the new businesses that have moved into Dorchester. And we just had a reception welcoming the new businesses in to the various areas. So we've been involved, the university has been involved with the Main Streets programs for the past few years.
I haven't been over there for ages, but in reading all this, we definitely, we'll take a trip over there. But one of your missions is to encourage the people that live there to work there, to dine and shop. How do you go about this?
Yes. Well, we try to put on events and promotional events. We do promotions during the holidays to get people into their local stores.
Tell us about some of the events.
Well, for example, we've done a parade called Countdown to Kindergarten. It encourages kids who are coming into kindergarten and their parents to get to know the retail district. And
how do you do the parade? That sounds terrific.
We get the kids all together who are coming into kindergarten. They each have a T-shirt, we're going into kindergarten. And
There's a certain recognition there that I would assume would be fantastic for the families cheering on their children.
Yes, and then they parade through Fields Corner.
Do you have a band?
We don't have a band, but that's a good idea.
And,
Yeah, we haven't had a band.
In Brookline, when I grew up, they used to have an old-timers parade. And people would come out and dress in the way that they grew up or their grandparents grew up. And I used to love that. And the cars would come out. But I think a band with children would just be fabulous.
Yes.
They'd go absolutely crazy. Now, you have an event coming up, and you are letting them, the universities, tell them you have a brand new building or place.
Well, campus center. We have a campus center that has been up and running now for the last couple of years.
Okay.
Beautiful building. It's a student center, one-stop shopping for our students, but we also have beautiful rooms that we rent out. We have a beautiful ballroom. So when we sat down and talked about an event for the Main Street's fundraiser, we come up with the idea with Dancing with the Stars, and for the university to connect our students, our faculty and staff to the community. That's key for us.
That's so important.
Yes.
That's so many universities, MIT, Harvard, whatever, they're finally getting into the act, but did not connect with the people right beside them. I was very impressed with all the things that you work on.
Right.
With the communities.
Right. We're currently, I serve on approximately 17 boards, local boards. Yes. And
huge.
Yes. And again, when we sit at meetings and we talk about the various activities, I go back, to the campus and see how I can connect those dots. And when the Dancing with the Stars event came up, then I immediately went to the professor of performing arts. And I said, well, is there an interest? What can we do? And she said, oh my goodness, this will be fabulous for our students.
I think this is an incredible idea. I know the students are going to be involved, but aren't you going to have personalities?
We will have personalities as well.
That's the thing. Good luck to the students. I'm interested. I think the idea of Boston having its Dancing with the Stars. Tell us about some of the personalities that are going to be dancing.
Sure. Well, we're still confirming.
By the way,
they're competing. Absolutely, they're competing. We have the former Red Sox pitcher Dennis Oil Can Boyd.
Oh, great!
Will be dancing with us.
I bet he's a real.
It'll be interesting to see him dance. Miss Massachusetts 2007 will be dancing with us.
Beauty touch.
Exactly. We also have comedian Steve Sweeney.
Oh, great.
If you've seen the show, this Dancing with the Stars is a nationwide show on ABC.
Everybody has seen Dancing with the Stars.
And usually each season they have someone who provides some comic relief.
How about politicians?
The mayor is very involved. He's going to be involved. Is he going
to be competing?
He won't be competing, but he's certainly going to be involved. Yes. Channel 5 is our media sponsor, and we expect that we'll have some celebrity profile someone
get those academics,
in Channel 5.
Mix it up and
exactly.
Have them make fools out of themselves. I'm really so sorry to miss it. We're going to be in Europe, as you know. But I think it's an absolutely incredible idea. And do you work on other things in business? You do with the...
Yes, various boards of trades and YMCA and Boys and Girls Clubs. And as I said, for our students, for this particular event, they will be getting course credit. They will be the professionals. They will be the teachers.
So
and they'll be assigned to
marked, and it's something that they have to take quite seriously.
Yes. There'll be 4 to 6 lessons ahead of time, and then of course the performance the evening of the event. So we held a series of auditions, and there was a tremendous.
Really?
Yes, it was fabulous. So many students, talented. So we have 5 females and 3 males. And they're all set to go, and they've selected. We've got cha-cha, samba, merengue, hip hop, waltz. So it's really.
So Channel 5 will be shooting this?
Yes.
Oh, that's terrific. I know, Gail, that you yourself are a graduate of UMass Boston.
Yes, I am.
Which must be very exciting to you to be able to bring it back.
Oh, yes, it's fabulous.
Lived here, what have you, being a native in this tragic world of ours, to give back to the community.
Yes, it's
telephone numbers, websites, very important.
We will be launching a website this month. It will be www.fieldscorner.org, and all the information, ticket information, will be available on the website. Our phone number is 617-474-1432. And
do you have tell us about future activities you have, Gail?
For the university?
Yes.
Well, we have our gala coming up. We have an opening. It's called Enrichment Week. And we have a series of seminars, and again, anybody interested in attending any events at UMass
Telephone
Boston,
number, website?
www.umb.edu, or you can call the Community Relations Office at 617-287-5310.
Well, Dick and I are going to go over to Fields Corner. What would you tell me about the restaurants before we
Oh,
go?
we have about 6 or 7 Vietnamese restaurants, so there's
I love Asian
wide
food.
variety to choose from. There's also the Blarney Stone, which offers
Which I'm
great
sure Dick will
food.
want to drop into.
So yeah, a great place to try out some good Vietnamese food.
Our guest today has been Gail Hoben. She is the Vice Chancellor of Community Relations over at UMass Boston. Evelyn Darling, who is the Executive Director of the Fields Corner Main Street organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our guest today is Professor Charles Freed, who is over from the Harvard Law School, where he has been teaching on and off since 1961. We're discussing today his most recent book called Modern Liberty. Professor Freed is considered what they put in the newspaper as a mellow conservative. But I read your book, and I don't find that I could lock you in as a conservative at all. Tell us about your definition of the title of your book.
The title of the book comes from the effort to define and to explore what it means to believe in individualism and in liberty in modern conditions, where what you have is what is referred to as the welfare regulatory state. In other words, a government that's all over the place telling all kinds of people what to do in all kinds of situations. And I think it's very important to assert the fact that government exists for us, and us is you and me one by one. It's not groups, it's not classes, it's not races, it's individuals who may choose to associate in groups or classes and so on. And I'm trying to explore what's left of this primary situation of the individual in the modern state. And I mean a perfectly decent, democratic state such as we have here and such as you see in Canada and all over Western Europe.
You use throughout your book the Canadian French language situation, and also in Vermont the Walmart. But we here in Boston and Massachusetts have set ourselves aside with this same-sex marriage situation. Mm-hmm. Now you speak of that in your book. Tell us your feelings on that.
Well, the first point is that I very strongly support not just the right, but the value of people being able to do with their persons, adult people, do with their persons as they wish, and to make the kinds of lives for themselves that they wish, so long as they coerce no one else, and as a British politician put it at the turn of the last century, don't frighten the horses. And in that respect, what the Supreme Court did a few years ago, saying that statutes like they had in Texas, making same-sex sexual relations criminal, were a obvious and inexcusable affront to personal liberty. I have a little trouble with my old court, actually, but I wasn't on it when it decided this, their decision in the same-sex marriage case. I certainly agree that any two people who want to connect themselves and have the privileges and the benefits and the burdens that come from a voluntary arrangement should be allowed to do that. And that's exactly what the New Jersey Supreme Court said there. To go further and to call it marriage seemed to me an unnecessary provocation. A provocation to people who have a different view of the subject, who think, well, that's not marriage. And so long as the practical effects, the tax deductions, the visitations, the adoption privilege, all of that, so long as all the practical effects are the same, to cram the word marriage down the throat of people who aren't ready to use it seems to me arrogance on the part of the court.
You went in that from liberty to equality, if I remember. Yes. Tell us another area that you really encompass the whole argument there is the ability to live differently in a community.
That's absolutely crucial. The ability to live differently. And that means to smoke, if that's what you want to do, to eat horrible trans fat loaded foods, if that's what you want to do, so long as you don't expect other people to pay for it. That's the idea. And so long as you don't blow your smoke in their faces, the secondhand smoke issue. But I think there's an awful lot today of people who have an idea, and it may actually be a very good idea, of what the good life is. And they're not content to try to be able to live that life and to enable other people to live it. They want to force it down people's throats, and I hate that.
Well, let me say, this is a book that you start reading. It's basically philosophical, and it brings up so many daily problems that you have to start asking yourself, where do I stand in this? And it was brilliant as far as the writing and the intellectual elements go. I thought it was very courageous of you to take such an element and deal with our daily problems. But tell us, do you have something else coming soon?
Not that I know of. You know, it depends what has pushed my buttons. But I want to disagree with you. The idea that to write that book was courageous, I have to object to. Courage is when you encounter danger. And there was no danger whatever in writing that book.
Huh? And you live in Massachusetts, too. Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dick.
All right.
We all hear the cliche, separate but equal education will make it. Will it make it? I personally don't think so, but today we have an author, Susan Eaton, and she's written The Children in E4, where she goes into a depressed area where supposedly the education is equal, but these people are, many of them, from a below poverty standard. And I want to know, Susan, I know how I feel, but you tell our viewers how you felt about this separate but equal, which I go.
Well, I think that separate but equal is actually an oxymoron. I don't think it's possible in American society, which has historically had a negative relationship with racial segregation, to have schools that are racially separate and equal, at least on a large scale. You can do it once in a while, but I think generally speaking it's a bad thing for society, and you can't create truly equal social educational institutions if you've got a large group of people, often defined by race and economic status, completely separate and cut off from the rest of society.
I couldn't agree with you more. Aren't the expectations less? And isn't there a mindset that comes, though you were a teacher in this school and you were the exception to the rule, but I have seen there's a certain expectation level coming from an area that was considered a depressed area. It was called the Farm in Brookline, from the teachers at the Brookline schools.
I think that the expectations might be one part of it, but the teacher who I wrote about in this particular school actually had very, very high expectations.
Well, I said, you know, many, there is the devoted teacher out there.
Right.
But there is a mindset with people, they'll pigeonhole people.
I think that that's true, and I think that there's a whole constellation of problems that come with a racially segregated, and not just racially segregated, but the attendant of racial segregation is almost always, at least 9 times out of 10, concentrated poverty. And when you have a high poverty school, research has shown time and time again that it has incredibly negative effects on a child's opportunity to learn.
No question. Now, you were in this Hartford school, and it was the Latino Simpson Waverly Elementary School in Hartford's North End. And you were there for how many years?
Well, I spent about 4 years in and out of the school, but I spent 2 years, the first couple years of my research, really embedded in the school 3 times a week. With a group of 3rd and 4th graders, Miss Luddy taught.
Well, tell her that you talk about a young student who you take. If you tell our viewers about.
Yeah, the student who I focused on or began to focus on was a kid who really won over everybody's heart, including mine, very quickly. And I call him Jeremy Otero in the book. He was a young Puerto Rican kid, 8 years old, incredibly smart, curious, loved to read, loved to do science experiments on his own, had a probing, curious mind. He had kind of great personality, very charismatic, very social, and peaceful child. And he really was not fulfilled in this school intellectually, or Miss Luddy wasn't able to indulge his natural curiosities at all. So here's a kid that you look at and you think, he's got pretty much everything going for him.
And he's not being brought up to his full potential.
Exactly. And there was just no way that the social institution could even begin to try to do that, because they were so overwhelmed with the problems of poverty that were reflected in the hallways and the classrooms, and just the day-to-day difficulties and challenges that these educators had to deal with in the class.
What do you think, a great law was passed while you were there, but the law wasn't implemented because, as I remember, it is the case was decided in favor of the plaintiffs, but appeals are still pending after 18 years.
That's
that
right.
To me was a shocker. Really.
Yeah, that's the parallel part of my story. I wanted to write about children who are being affected by racial segregation and by inequality. But the reason I went to Hartford was because of this case, Sheff v. O'Neill, which sought to remedy. It was a landmark case that sought to remedy the racial segregation and concentrated poverty that's a hallmark of urban systems all over the country. And the plaintiffs did win their case and their argument that segregation was damaging equal educational opportunities. That's right. And there was a small remedy, but there weren't any huge revolutionary changes made in the way that children are educated in the state.
We don't have that much more time, Susan, but I have to tell you, in reading this, it just brought me even more strongly to the conviction that the suburban schools have got to be integrated. You cannot do this to the cities. Tell me, I'm giving you my feeling, but if you tell our viewers.
I completely agree with you, Smoki. That's absolutely right. I think that a lot more can be done by suburban communities who
They have
benefited.
to take their responsibility and stop talking about the ills of the city and pick up. And this came home to me with the busing thing in Boston,
Right.
with
It
friends
was
of
all
mine
on the
who said, "I am
shoulders.
now I'm a working woman, and my child is going to school in the North End. I'm in Hyde Park. How am I going to get to my child?" I realized how inherently unfair this was.
That's right.
And it was not doing anything for the child.
Right, and it placed the burden in Boston in particular. The burden was placed upon working class whites, working class, working poor, racial minorities, and the suburbs were exempt.
No, it has to
I was one of
change.
those kids who was exempt back
Yeah,
then.
no.
Yeah.
My children went to private school.
Yeah.
I went to public school. My mother took me out of a poverty-stricken area and sent me to a school in a better area. She had to fight the school committee in Brookline to get me into that school,
Yeah.
but she knew that we had potential. But anyhow, be that as it may, it is all reflected in The Children in E4 by Susan Eaton. This is an absolutely fabulous book, and it really brings it home. There is a responsibility out there for the suburbs to start absorbing the children in the city, in the innermost city, so that they can come to their full potential. That hurt me so much about that young boy.
I know.
That was not coming. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
our guest.
Thanks for having me.
From the Swans Cafe in the Boston Park Plaza Hotel, this has been the Smoki Bacon and Dick Concannon Show with co-host Joanna DiTillo. Join us next week, same time, same station.